In ancient times, in the world of Stoicism, wise minds developed principles that can become a compass in the hustle and bustle of modern life. One of these principles is the idea of finding meaning in difficulties. Imagine if every trial, every shadow on your path, could be the key to a deep understanding of yourself and to the growth of your inner strength. Today, we will plunge into this philosophical labyrinth, where difficulties turn into teachers and life's trials turn into precious stones of wisdom. Welcome to the world of Stoicism and the principle of finding meaning in difficulties. The principle of abstaining from things that are not in our control. Abstaining from things that are not in our control is one of the basic teachings of Stoicism and reflects the philosophy of managing our emotions and reactions to the world around us. Let's take a closer look at how the Stoics understand this principle. The distinction between the inner and outer world. The inner world, in our control. It includes our thoughts, beliefs, values, and emotions. Stoics claim that these aspects of our lives are amenable to our influence and control. The outside world, not in our control. This includes external events, actions of other people, natural disasters, and so on. Stoics argue that we cannot control these aspects, and they can be volatile and unstable. Accepting reality. The Stoics insist that we must accept reality as it is. This includes understanding that we will not always be able to change external circumstances, and it is worth focusing on what depends on us. Avoiding unnecessary suffering. Refusing to link your emotional state to external events helps to avoid unnecessary suffering. If we accept that we cannot change some things, we can avoid unnecessary anxiety and stress. Focus on internal development. Stoics suggest focusing on developing your inner world, thus improving your character and ability to respond intelligently to external events. Example, if the bus is late due to a traffic jam, which is beyond our control, the Stoic will most likely accept this fact without concern, since this is something that he cannot change. Instead, he can use this time for reading, reflection, or other internal activities. In general, the principle of abstaining from things that are not in our control calls us to wisely manage our reactions to external circumstances and focus on what we can change, our inner world and reactions. When Stoics talk about abstaining from things that are not in our control, they offer several practical approaches to ensure that external circumstances do not affect our inner world. To begin with, it is worth realizing that we cannot fully control external events. Life is full of uncertainty, and many aspects are beyond our control. Instead of wasting energy worrying about things that we can't change, Stoics suggest redirecting attention to things that are amenable to our influence. They call for a focus on their inner reactions and emotions. This means that when faced with adverse events, we can choose how to respond to them. Instead of allowing external circumstances to determine our mood, we can actively decide how we will relate to these events. This principle also implies accepting reality as it is. Epictetus said that we should not resist what is beyond our control, but rather adapt to circumstances. In fact, it is a call for internal flexibility and the ability to adapt to change. Thus, instead of wasting energy worrying about what is out of our control, Stoics suggest actively shaping our reactions, accepting the inevitable and developing inner strength in order to become resilient in the face of life changes. The principle of separating external events from one's reactions to them. Stoicism presupposes the separation of events taking place in the outside world and our emotional reactions to these events. Stoics claim that events themselves are neutral. They acquire an emotional color through our perception and evaluation. For example, the loss of a job in itself does not carry an emotional meaning, as long as we do not give it one meaning or another. The basic idea is to focus not so much on the event as on your reaction to it. We have control over how we interpret and react to what is happening. Often our reactions to events are automatic and undivided. Stoics suggest that we carefully monitor our emotional reactions and prevent them from taking over us without thinking. Before reacting to an event, it is worth taking a pause. This gives you time to reflect and make a conscious choice of reaction, instead of letting momentary emotions take over. Stoics claim that we are responsible for our own emotions. Recognizing this fact allows you to actively participate in the formation of your inner world and avoid shifting blame to external circumstances. The practice of rethinking events and finding positive or learning moments in difficult situations can help change our perceptions and, consequently, our emotional reactions. The principle of separating external events from one's reactions to them provides tools to more consciously and effectively manage one's emotional state in various situations. The principle of focusing on what is in our control. Stoicism implies an active focus on aspects of life that are amenable to our influence, rather than those that lie beyond our control. Instead of wasting energy worrying about things that we cannot change, Stoics urge us to pay attention to the following aspects: our reactions and emotions, our thoughts and beliefs, personal values and actions, our own behavior, effective use of time, relationships and communication, personal growth and learning. The principle of focusing on what is in our control encourages us to actively participate in shaping our lives and try to influence those aspects that depend on us, instead of worrying about what is beyond our influence. By focusing on what is in our control, we can create healthier and more effective strategies for responding to life situations. Let's apply this to a real-life example. Let's say you are faced with a difficult situation at work. For example, you are criticized for something that may seem unfair. The Stoic approach to this situation includes the following steps. Reflection on your reaction. Instead of immediately reacting emotionally to criticism, take a short pause and think about your initial reaction. Separation of event and reaction. Determine exactly what is under your control in this situation. You can't change the fact of criticism itself, but you can choose how you respond to it. Focus on reaction. The positive impact in this situation lies in the conscious choice of your reaction. You may decide not to take criticism personally, but instead use it as an opportunity to improve your skills or approaches. Taking responsibility. Take responsibility for your emotions and decide how you want to respond to them. This may include understanding that you have an influence on your own emotional state. Changing perceptions. Try to look at criticism from a new perspective. Instead of viewing it as a threat, consider it as a chance for personal growth and improvement. Actions in accordance with values. Make a decision about how you want to act in this situation in accordance with your personal values. Perhaps it will be a manifestation of professionalism and calm confidence. The principle of accepting the inevitable. We can't always control all the events in our lives. This is especially important in situations where the impact or outcome depends on external factors that are beyond our influence. Accepting the inevitable does not mean inaction or indifference. Rather, it is a call to free ourselves from the desire to control what cannot be changed and focus on what is amenable to our influence, our thoughts, reactions, and actions. Epictetus said that wisdom consists in distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. By accepting the inevitable, we free ourselves from the unnecessary stress associated with worrying about what is outside our sphere of influence. Applying this principle in everyday life means learning to let go of things that are beyond our control and developing mental flexibility in order to adapt to change. For example, if we are faced with a difficult situation that cannot be changed, Stoics suggest changing our attitude towards this situation and deciding how we can respond within our control. Accepting the inevitable becomes the basis for inner resilience and wisdom, allowing us to navigate the complexities of life more effectively and maintain psychological balance in a variety of circumstances. The principle of accepting the inevitable in Stoicism sheds light on the philosophy of adapting to the variability of life and addressing those aspects that lie beyond our control. Here we can look at this principle through the prism of wonderful stories and facts. The story of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, one of the famous Stoics and Roman emperors, faced many challenges during his life, including difficult political situations and internal conflicts. In his Reflections, he wrote about accepting the inevitable and how we should love our destiny, even if it does not always meet our expectations. An example from modern life. Imagine that you lost your job due to staff cuts. Instead of sinking into anxiety and despair, a Stoic approach to this situation involves awareness of the inevitability of such changes and an active search for ways to adapt. This may include learning new skills, finding new opportunities, or even reviewing your own career priorities. The lesson of accepting the inevitable. The principle of accepting the inevitable teaches us not to see challenges and difficulties as insurmountable barriers, but as part of the natural order of things. When we accept the inevitable, we release the energy that we previously spent fighting something beyond our control. It also opens the door to new opportunities and increased inner resilience in the face of change. Thus, stories and scenarios that emphasize the principle of accepting the inevitable can inspire a more flexible and wise attitude to life. The principle of seeing things as they are. The principle of seeing things as they are in Stoicism is aimed at an objective perception of reality and avoiding distortions in one's own perception. Let's look at this principle and some interesting aspects related to it. Objective perception. Stoics emphasize the importance of seeing events and objects without being influenced by their own prejudices or emotional coloring. This allows you to better understand the world around you and make smarter decisions. Separating facts from estimates. The principle implies a distinction between facts and one's own assessments. Stoics claim that events are neutral in themselves, and our assessments give them emotional significance. Interesting aspects. Storming. Memory phenomenon. Stoics pay attention to storming, a phenomenon when we remember not an event, but our emotional attitude towards it. Accepting things as they are involves becoming aware of this phenomenon and trying to see events without distortions caused by our emotions. The golden rule. The principle also correlates with the ethical side of Stoicism. The golden rule of the Stoics sounds like nature-based behavior. In the context of seeing things as they are, this means observing objective and ethical norms and not giving in to your preferences. Life stories. The resilience associated with this principle can also manifest itself in the ability to create your own life stories. This means seeing your life in a certain light, choosing an interpretation of events that helps to maintain emotional balance and better adapt to change. The famous Stoics and the principle of seeing things as they are. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic, in his Reflections, expressed the idea that we do not worry about things, but because of our views on them. This reflects the principle of seeing things as they are, and the realization that our assessments and views shape our emotional reactions. Epictetus. Epictetus, another famous Stoic, argued that it is not things in themselves that sadden people, but the views they take on them. His teaching emphasized the importance of treating events with understanding and without unnecessary emotional coloring. Conclusion. The principle of seeing things as they are in Stoicism is a key element for developing resilience and wisdom. It allows us to better understand the world around us, accept changes, and effectively manage our inner world. This philosophy invites us to view events objectively, freeing ourselves from distortions caused by our own prejudices and emotions. The principle of finding meaning in difficulties. This principle invites us not only to endure trials, but also to use them as an opportunity for personal growth and development. An interesting aspect of this principle is the emphasis that even in the most difficult moments we can find lessons that will help us become stronger and wiser. This approach reflects the philosophy of Stoicism, which notes that our reactions to difficulties are more important than the difficulties themselves. The principle also urges us to consider difficulties as part of the natural process of life, and not as something abnormal. Stoics claim that through overcoming difficulties, we can develop our resilience, as well as better understand our strengths and weaknesses. The famous Stoic Seneca said, "We have no more powerful means for our own salvation than the search for truth in difficulties." This quote underlines the importance of a steady pursuit of understanding and comprehension of the difficulties that arise on our way. The principle of finding meaning in difficulties invites us to consider life's trials as an opportunity for personal growth, self-knowledge, and the development of wisdom. Instead of avoiding difficult moments, the Stoics urge us to use them as an incentive to improve and enrich our inner life.